Being Your Best You with Dr. Kier.
I'm exceptional, thank you. How are you today?
I'm so good.
Blocks to bold, brass to gold, better to best. We all get caught in mental mazes, believing that we have to live the way others see us, or being taught to think things through. Dr. Kier is an agent of change using Geotran human programming and activations to quickly and easily release people from the automatic patterns and inner glitches that block their healthy, wealthy, happy life. Instead of going where our innate circuitry takes us. Being in alignment with you is the best way to create your best life. Are you ready to be your best self? Being Your Best You with Dr. Kier. Welcome to the show.
Hey, this is Dr. Kier Deb speaking to you from the Midwest at the moment. And I'm having an exceptional day, and I hope you're doing exceptionally well also. I am so thrilled today to be welcoming a fellow coach. Well, I don't call myself a coach anymore, but she is definitely a coach, Maggie Olson, and she is just going to give you some fabulous information about really how to be your best you, or at least how to run your best business. And your business is such a reflection of who you are that the very best thing that you can do for your business is to be you. And the very best thing that you can do for you is to run a business that is based on your values, on who you are, on what lights you up. That's why my business in the past was called Light Me Up Coaching, because I just love to see people doing the things that light you up. Anyway, I'm so happy to welcome Maggie, and I'm sure that we're going to have another one of those fabulous conversations between two grown women. I mean, what could be better? Maggie, over to you.
Hello, I'm so glad to be here. I was so excited when you asked me to be on your show. I love the chance to be able to get in front of people, right in front of audiences, have an awesome conversation, and just really, grow, right? Grow and encourage and offer value and all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm just thrilled to have you. So, Maggie, can you talk a bit about what you offer people?
Yeah, for sure. So I am, I guess you could call me a business coach. However, I love to refer to myself as a chaos to clarity coach. And I also have started calling myself your business bestie. So I have been, I've been in business of some sort for 15, 16 years. And it's just really been such a huge journey for me, right? I've seen so much growth in myself, as well as just my businesses and so many other things. So I started out as a photographer, and have grown into a yoga studio ownership. I created a yoga teacher training. And then in 2020, when the world kind of came crumbling down, I thought, okay, here's my chance. Am I going to stay in what I'm doing, or is it time to make a shift? And I felt the calling to make the shift out of being a yoga studio owner and out of really being in a bigger photography spotlight in my local area, to shift into coaching and see what that could offer me. I knew I would be able to connect with a lot more women entrepreneurs who were having the same questions that I was having, right? How do I run my business and have the time freedom to be with my family, to not work 80 hours a week? And how can I really streamline things in my business?
Absolutely. And it's so interesting, you mentioned your family, because Eva, who I interviewed a couple of weeks ago, she is the one who taught me or reminded me that your business is a reflection of yourself, and therefore you need to build it on the values that are important to you. And she had come from years and years and years in corporate, in HR, and all the rest of it. And what created part of that pivot for her was during COVID, she got pregnant. And she realized that actually her values were about community and family. So she's got a 2.5-year-old at home, a 21-year-old not at home.
Oh, wow.
Which is quite the gap.
Yeah.
But now she has set up her business so that she works 2.5 days a week. And the rest is automated or semi-automated, or she's been able to delegate some of it so that she can really be in alignment with her own values.
Yeah.
Including
Yeah.
being involved with her daughter.
Right, for sure. And I think values are, as you get into business, as you get into entrepreneurship, you start with these values and you're like, yes, this is my why. This is why I'm in business. And I think as you move forward through business, you start to not necessarily shy away from them, but they start to get dull. And it's easy to get caught up in the hustle mentality and the I have to do this, I have to do that. So, really taking a strong look at, like, one of my big values is joy. Does this bring me joy? Do I get that enlightened feeling of like, this feels easy, this feels right? Or am I doing this because, it's Tuesday and I have to do this thing again, right? So, really kind of feeling into like, what does this feel like for me? If it brings me joy, it's probably going to also bring me time freedom, security, sustainability, all things that are really value to me. So, I think it's important to lean into those core values.
Absolutely. But you of course did not start out as a coach. You were just saying to us, I mean, you did that lovely spread
Yeah.
of other things. So did you pursue business, for example, at university, or how
No.
did you really, and how did you end up here?
So I wound up here because in 2006, I studied abroad in Spain. I studied in Seville, Spain for a semester. So I was there for 6 months. Beautiful, gorgeous. And I took a camera over there, right? A little dinky camera that, like, the back screen, right? The back screen is probably about that big. And I was over there just taking tons and tons of photos, and I had dabbled in photography in 4-H when I was younger. So I already kind of knew how to work a camera, and I had entered photos in the fair and all that stuff. But I didn't really think much about it until I was in Spain taking all these photos. And I have the photo right here. This photo, I took this photo. This is the only copy I have of this photo. These 3 women at the spring fair in Seville, right, in Feria. I took that photo. I looked at the back of my camera and I thought, I'm going to be a photographer. I'm going to go home and be a photographer. I'm going to open up a business. And I had never had those thoughts before, ever. And I remember calling my mom and saying, I am going to start a photography business. And she said, oh, okay. That's yes. And can you finish college first? Because I was a junior in college at that point. And she said, you've got like 2 semesters left. So, do you want to finish? And I was like, oh yeah, I guess. Right. Yeah. So, and I had also been interning at a local company. So I did spend some time in corporate, and they offered me a job when I graduated. So, it was 2007, 2008. So it was that crazy like housing crisis time. And again, there are a lot of big events have happened in the last 25 years. So, knowing that I had a corporate job to step into was great. That job also allowed me to do a lot of photography there and videography. So I learned a lot more while I was there. And as I was there, I also bought myself a camera and really started just literally bothering everyone that I knew and saying, can I please take your picture? I would love to take your pictures. I'm a photographer. I take pictures. I would love to take, right? And just over and over and over until I started building this awareness around myself here locally that like I'm a photographer and I'm pretty, right? Like, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I am a good photographer, right? Like, I have a natural eye for these things. So as I grew in photography, right, I realized that, oh, corporate is really not where I want to be spending my time. So, you know, then as my business grew, I knew that I was able to step out of that corporate sphere of that safety net, that corporate, you know, it's a thing, right? That's like corporate is so safe, but you are replaceable in that job, right? And I would often argue that being an entrepreneur is actually a safer place to be. You're securing yourself jobs.
Yeah.
So I stepped away from corporate and stepped into being a full-time photographer. And in that time, I also started taking yoga classes. There was a yoga studio that opened here locally, and I was able to, I actually asked them if I could come in and take photos of their yoga studio. Because I was like, well, they probably need brand photos, so I'd love to take photos.
Absolutely.
So, you know, they said, why don't you come in and take a class first? I was like, sure, I can stretch, right? And just got my butt handed to me in that class because it was a power yoga class, and I had no clue what power yoga was. So I was like, oh yeah, stretching can't be that bad. So I went in and the room was like 95 degrees with a whole bunch of it was the middle of summer here in Wisconsin, so it was hot outside, it was hot inside. They didn't have the AC on, so it was toasty. And I left that class like dripping with sweat, and I was like, wow. Okay. And then I remember getting back home and like barely being able to walk, and I'm like, I gotta go back. And I'm like, what? what am I? Okay, all right. So I went back and I kept going back, and I wound up learning so much about myself during yoga, right? The movements, the amount of brain power it takes to really do, you know, like be present in a yoga class is huge. So then I wound up taking yoga teacher training, and like a year or so after that, the women who ran the studio, they knew I had left my corporate job, and they approached me and said, we're moving to Hawaii. Do you want to buy the studio? And I was like, I guess. Right? I had no clue how to run a yoga studio, right? Like I had no clue how to run a photography business, but I learned how. I had no clue how to run a yoga studio or teach a yoga class, but I learned how. You know, so I really spent a lot of time growing the yoga studio from being a donation-based studio to a very profitable studio situation. So then in 2020, when I came home from Bali, from a yoga retreat that I led, and I said to my husband, I think I'm done with the yoga studio. He went, what? You're what? I said, well, it's a lot of work. And like literally everything is shutting down. And I am, you know, like a yoga studio was not on the list of things that could stay open. Right. So we were, I was forced to close.
Heavy breathing in closed spaces? I don't think so.
Yeah. So I was forced to close, and, you know, I made a major pivot and I did a lot of classes online. But it just wasn't the same. It wasn't the same community where it was like, it just wasn't the same. And I could tell everyone else was kind of like missing that as well. So, you know, so I was like, okay, well, I inadvertently asked the universe to give me an out, to give me an exit plan for the studio. Here it is. It's presenting itself to me. So I took it and I ran with it, you know, and my husband was like, okay, so what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to be a coach. And he was like,
what?
What? What? You're gonna what? And and at that time I had been working with a business coach for a few years, and she really helped me grow my business. And I said, I explained what I was doing with her, how she helped me, and I said, look, I've grown 2 businesses. I can definitely help other people with that. What I really want to help people with is the mindset behind it, right? Like tapping into those things that I've learned in a yoga class that really have helped shift my mind out of that negative bubble of everything is junk and this is crap and nothing ever works for me, into something like, like I'm working on my best self. I am taking steps forward to my, future millionaire self, or whatever that is for you. But working on those mindset shifts that really allow you to open up and step into that big power of yourself.
Right. You see the comment, you have no fear. And I was just thinking, thank you, commenter. I was just thinking, one of the things that we do, whether we call ourselves a coach or something else, I'm going for mentor myself. I'm 65. I can be a mentor at this age. But is that really, I believe people are not so much interested in our specific techniques as how they feel when they're around us. We're actually giving them that presence. So by keeping our frequency where it's supposed to be, we're giving them a model of what their frequency should be, could be, might be. And that connects to the thought I was having about you specifically, which is that, I just love your confidence. If you just give your clients a dose of that confidence,
right?
Then strategy is great, mindset's great, all these things are really, really great. But sometimes we just really need someone to look us straight in the face and say, you know what, you can do this.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And what confidence feels like.
Yeah. Yes. That's so true. Right. And I was thinking earlier this morning, about generating more income in my business, and I got this those butterflies in the stomach of like, ooh, this, I don't, right. Like it's that unknown space. And my first yoga teacher used to say, the difference between fear and excitement is breath. So when you're feeling fearful, breathe, right? Take a breath, and it usually shifts into excitement, right? So the body doesn't know, it just has that sensation, right? It doesn't know. When you add the breath, it allows your mind to realize there is no threat here. There's excitement here. There's the opportunity here, right? So, I won't say I have no fear, because I definitely have fears. However, I am willing to step into that and say, here's where I think I can go, and here's what I think I can do, and I'm going to try.
My teacher, Dorothy Espio, always said that the trauma, the stress, the whatever that we move through, that we clear and heal in ourselves, that makes us the homeopathic for other people who had in the past similar traumas or stresses or whatever. So it's the fact that you know how to get through it is a huge part of your value,
right?
That you're working with. It's sort of like me being an intuitive. Until I started working with Dorothy and doing Geotran back in 1997, I was the most left-brain person you have ever met in your life. And the fact that I could learn how to be intuitive means I can teach it.
Right.
The fact that you could go into a yoga studio and sort of go, this is interesting. Yeah. That's exactly the shift that you can assist, or that you can just say, I'm gonna set up a photographic studio.
Right.
That's exactly the energy of the shift. I imagine that you were assisting your clients with. You said, yes, I've done that. I know what that feels like. I know how to help you get there, and I can be with you while you're experiencing these new and uncomfortable sensations.
Right. Yeah. And I think that as you I know when I step into a new situation, it is always nice to have someone there, right? Someone else that's like, yep, it's okay to move forward and you can do this. And I think that is a big part of my coaching, is that I am that person for my clients, to sit with them and say, yeah, it's okay. It's okay to feel scared. It's okay that this is unknown. And it's also okay to know that you've got this, that you can move forward, that you can do this.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like we're always, when we work with people on this level, we're always saying, okay, I have similar faults, flaws, blocks, whatever, or I did in the past, and I'm a little bit further on. So here, I'm still within hand distance. I can walk you over this bridge. Yeah. I'm not so far ahead that what I have to say is not going to land.
Right.
I'm right there with you. Yeah. But at least I have enough experience to know that this probably is going to work better for you than that.
Right. Right. Yes. Yeah, for sure. Here are the mistakes that I made. I would suggest not doing them.
It's like when I'm working with someone in human design, and they look at the colored centers, which are where the energy flows easily and naturally for them. It's where their skills and talents are. And then they look at the white ones, the undefined centers, and sometimes they get a little nervous. And I say, no, you don't understand. Especially if you have a 1-3 or a 3-5 profile, you're going to learn by mistakes. Where you have the open centers is where you can learn from their mistakes.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it all yourself. You don't have to make every single mistake yourself. And you can cruise in on somebody else's momentum.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And I think, I love that about human design, right? And I've loved learning that about my own human design. And really, when I learned that I was a manifesting generator, that answered so many questions. Yes, because prior to learning about human design, a lot of people told me, you are doing too much. Shouldn't you slow down? You have a lot of things going on. And I was like, oh, okay, right? So I did try to slow down, right? To not do so much. And I was so bored. And I just, I was so bored. So, for anyone, right? So for anyone that's watching, a manifesting generator is one of the types of human design, right? One of the not profiles. Oh,
yeah, the types. It's a type.
Yeah, the types. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So, a manifesting generator to me is like being an Energizer bunny, right? Like I just keep going and going and going and going until I need to stop. But I also really like to bounce around to so I have a lot of projects going on all of the time. Even to this day, I'm still a photographer. I still have a very well-known photography business, right? I've got my coaching business. I have a podcast. I blog. I am on social media. Yep. I have 2 kids. So, I have a husband. We go camping. We do all kinds of stuff. So, when I learned about being a manifesting generator, I was like, this is why I love to do all this stuff, because it's part of me. It's ingrained in me. Absolutely. And it's okay to lean into that. I think that's also part of my, probably why I show up so confident and I have no fear. Is because I've really leaned into what makes me me.
Exactly. Just on a technical level, for people who are interested in human design, what makes a manifesting generator is you start with being a generator. I'm also a generator, for instance, and I have sacral definition, sacral authority, I should say, rather. And it means that one of the motor centers is directly connected to the throat. So think about that for a second. So that battery demands expression. Yes. I mean, no messing around here. No hiding out. It's like, yeah.
Mhm.
So manifesting generators have the most interests and the most energy of any of the types. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm a pure generator, but I act like a manifesting generator. It really confuses anybody I discuss human design with. Okay, we have a graphic up here, and I'm not quite sure why. Thank you. So, yeah, but what's really, really characteristic of manifesting generators is that they always have 3 or 4 projects going on at the same time, and they just really want to get them done.
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
so in a sense, you got a piece of good advice because they do actually need to slow down and pay attention to
Yes.
each of those things that they're interested in.
Right. And in that period of time where I'm not kidding when I say I had 10 different people tell me I need to slow down. And I was like, okay, all right. And that was right before all the pandemic stuff happened. So when the pandemic stuff happened, I was like,
Yeah.
hey, here is a real opportunity for me to slow down and reassess what I'm doing, because I was going 100 miles an hour and I really didn't know what way is up, right? Like looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, it was some solid sound advice that I slowed down.
Yeah.
And I know it was coming from a place of love, right? Of people that were like, you look a little stressed, right? Your eyes always twitching, so like, right? So being able to like rest and reset before a ton of burnout happened, right before that like big bout of burnout inevitably would have come, being able to restructure what I was doing and to not stand up to my husband, but to say to my husband, hey, I want to make this change, and to have his support too, right? Like for him to say, yeah, okay, all right, let's do it. For him to jump in with me was really, really helped me face that fear of, oh, wow, I'm closing this yoga studio that's been open for almost 10 years in our community. And all I could think was, what will so-and-so think? What will other people think when I say I'm closing this, right? Is it going to look bad for me? Blah, blah, blah. And really worrying about what other people thought. That is what was driving me to stay open, was like, well, I don't want to disappoint anyone.
Right.
But it was at the expense of my health, right? Because I was losing hair, I was losing weight, I was, right? Like it was one of those things where I was so stressed out that I had to make a change. So when I did, it was such a relief to know that I had support, that my husband was supportive, but also the community, right? I was really met with open arms from the community to say, yeah, we get it. We understand. It's okay. It's okay. So that was really awesome as well.
So it sounds like it was really quite a big step into being you, just on a, I was going to say slightly different level, a slightly higher level. It's like it kind of feels like, just to use the language of my world, you'd sort of mastered the physical. So now you got to look in at the soul level, looking at what you think, feel, believe, and desire, and say, okay, now what here is genuinely true for me now? What's in alignment with who I am?
Right.
Because that's really the only way you can help other people be in better alignment with who they are, of course.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And, for me, as I look back, like I knew when I bought the studio that it was not a forever job, right? It was not a forever business for me to like hang on to. So towards the end, it was kind of like I was holding that rope, like, I don't know if I want to let go. And then when I did, right, the release and the relief that I felt was like, okay, that time period is done. And now I have the space to move into something more expansive. And really the coaching business that I've grown has really allowed me to let my manifesting generator self just like kind of go wild, in a sense of like, I can have all these projects and all these things under one roof, under one business. right? And like
Oh.
they all kind of interconnect, and I can make them all jive where I'm not like, okay, I have these 10 photography things and I have these 10 yoga things and I've got this, right? Where it was all kind of separate before, it's all kind of come together now.
I love it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good to hear. You know, I trained as an architect, and I came to the States and worked as an architect for 4 or 5 years. And it took me a year to shift from, well, of course, I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life, to, you know what, I'm not actually enjoying this. I'm not. I'm spending
Mm-hmm.
90% of my time in front of a computer working on specifications. Now, specifications are important and they're not necessarily boring, but that is not what I went to 6 years of architecture school to do, to spend
Right.
my time doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I did finally make that decision, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
and I thought, okay, I don't know what my next step is, but I'm going to go find out. And it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
based on what I'm passionate about. It's going to be based on, which I guess is my way of saying joy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I did. I went and found it, 26 years ago. So, boy, I get that pivot thing. I really do.
Yeah. And I think being a woman, right? Obviously, I can't speak for a man making a pivot, but like as a woman, like there's so much mental chatter that goes on when you are in the midst of a pivot, right? Is it right? Is it wrong? Should I do this? Should I do that? Who's it going to affect? Blah, 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 right? Like all those things, right? To really have someone like a coach, right? I had a coach when I made that big pivot, to have someone that I could go to every week and say, okay, here are all the things, here are all the thoughts that I'm thinking. And like, I know some of them are irrational, like, but I just need to talk, right? I need to work through some of this. And so that was really one of the things that drew me into coaching, was being able to be that sounding board for someone else.
Yes.
And, being able to sit and listen and offer them a place to just chatter on, was really something that was really powerful for me when I stepped into the coaching business.
Yeah. Hey, great question coming up here. Would you like to address that?
Yeah.
How did you find funding for your businesses? Ooh.
Well, so honestly, funding for my businesses, I have always just kind of, I guess, grassroots, like whatever's in my pocket is what I have to spend, right? Like, and so I've never, I can't say never, because I did get a loan during the pandemic. But other than that, I have never had a loan for my business. So it's really just kind of like whatever cash I've got is the revenue I have to build on. So as far as like other funding, like when I was building my photography business, it was literally me knocking on everyone's door saying, hi, I would love to take your family photos. I charge, I think when I started, I think I charged $50 for a family session, which, like now I charge $400 for a family session, right? And granted, that was 16 years ago, but still, right? Like as I grew, my prices increased. So similar for yoga studio, we did have to invest in that. I did have a business partner. But really the funding that came from that was from a savings account of mine. And, then as we got into that, my partner left, he gave me the whole business. And, and I feel very lucky because he said, you know what, I just want out. I'm moving on. I'm doing other things in my life. So I'm just going to hand the business off to you. And I was like,
okay,
cool. Thank you for being an investor in my business. Sure. So then when I transitioned into coaching, the funding for that, I mean, there wasn't really a ton that I had to financially put up front for coaching. So, if you're getting into a coaching business, right, you're going to need a computer or a phone, an internet connection, right? So there are a lot of things you can do for free. There are a lot of things you can pay for. But other than like investing in a coach, it wasn't really a ton of money that I've invested into my coaching business to start it up. I've since, added on some like a CRM and some funnel building things. So like behind the scenes, like automation tools, right? Like using Canva, I use Photoshop and Adobe products and all that stuff. So that stuff does cost money. But I would say, if you're going to start up a business, coaching is a relatively easy investment to start.
And also in my world, we truly believe that there are unlimited resources. The question tends to be, what are you willing to receive? What's the size of your container?
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I have been known to manifest a sports car in 5 days with no car payments.
Yeah, which is amazing.
I live in a house that my best friend bought for me. I didn't even ask him for it. I just turned up one day and he said the next day, if I bought you a house, would you consider moving here to Urbana-Champaign, Illinois? So I said, okay. Depends on the house, of course.
Right.
Fortunately, it was a house I really liked.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. Here's actually, I work with people a lot about their abundance and prosperity, and one of the most exciting things to watch is watching people let go of their limiting beliefs, and that's got to come up for you.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure.
Yes.
In your coaching.
Yeah, for sure. I think it usually comes up in the way of either like, I don't know what to charge for my offer, or, similar to what I was doing when I first started my photography business, I was undervaluing myself. Instead of just putting myself out there for the price that I wanted, I thought, well, I don't have a lot of experience, so maybe I should charge less. And, now after 16 years of business and 3 different business models, right? 3 vastly different businesses. I now know that just go ahead and charge what you want to charge. And when you're in alignment with the, the money coming in, if you're on the fence of I want to charge $500 for this thing, but I don't know if I'm qualified enough or if I'm whatever enough, chances are you're probably more in alignment with that $500 than you are with the $50. And you'll probably get less people taking you up on the $50 offer than you will with the $500 offer.
Yeah, for sure. I was actually thinking about this because in some ways our business model is kind of similar, even though I no longer call myself a coach, because as some other coach I was talking to was pointing out to me, if it takes you a certain amount of effort and your time, which is the most precious thing you have, to enroll a new client, then it is very much better use of your time to enroll a high-ticket client than a low-ticket client. Now, the downside is that you only, if your high-ticket client is a one-to-one, is a VIP client, then that's not really scalable. You've only got the same amount of time as everybody else. So even if you delegate as much as possible, if you're giving your time one-to-one to someone, that's not really the most efficient thing to do. So what I like is the kind of hybrid picture of group sessions with some regular one-to-one, so that if somebody has an issue that they feel needs to be kept confidential, which happens a lot in my line of work, they'll know that they can always come back to you and get a little bit more help than they're comfortable with in the group setting. But the problems people have, there's a tremendous amount of overlap. So if I can have 10 people on a call and saying, hey, we're going to address this for you, and I know that it's going to help you in this, then that's obviously better for me, but it's also better for them because I can offer that to them at a price point that's more accessible for them.
Yeah. And I think that's a good reminder for anyone who is starting a business, right? It's easy. Anything in business can be simple or easy, right? It can be as simple or as easy as we want it to be. But also that, if you want that simplicity, it's there, and it doesn't have to be I know a lot of my clients have come to me and they're like, oh, I have all these ideas, I have all this stuff, and like they bring all this emotional baggage with them, right?
Oh yeah.
Of like, here are my suitcases full of emotional crap, and here are all the reasons why I can't do all the things that you're telling me, right? Like all of the, when especially when it comes down to building your offers, right? A lot of people, for me, one high ticket offer did not work at all. I took 0 clients on with one high ticket offer, 0. And I tried that on for a year. And after a year, I said to myself, okay, I can't keep doing this thing, expecting something different to happen. I have to change. So when I did, it felt so much easier for me to say, okay, here are different price points, because I know I want to be able to meet people at different price levels of their availability, right? Because I don't want to spend my clients' money for them, but I do want them to have options to say, if they're feeling a little strapped for cash, they have a way to connect with me. If they feel like, right, if they're ready to go all in and pay for the VIP, they have that option. So, really digging into that for me and my business has felt so amazing. Just knowing that I have options for people to opt into.
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of this is about choices. The choices you allow yourself, the choices that you feel unconstrained about. Yeah. So that, okay, this doesn't work. Maybe this one will. And it may be also that I'm just not the person to work with you.
Right. Yes.
That's okay. If I can, I'll recommend somebody else. If I can't, we're going to have to assume that the universe has some other plan for you.
Right. Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Because I'm sure there must have also, or you tell me, have there also been times when I actually turn down clients if it doesn't check for me, right? Have there been times when you've taken on a client and then you realize that you're not the best fit, or they're wanting you to fix everything for them, or just that the business that they're trying to start is not a good fit for them? Which is the hard thing to say to somebody.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yes to all of that. Yes. Yeah. I have definitely, and I've taken on some of those clients out of desperation, right? Under desperation for myself, not knowing when the next client will come, to be like, oh, okay. Oh my gosh, I have to sign this client because I haven't signed a client in a while and I don't know what to do. And I, all those nerves and all that, again, fear and anxiety of I don't knows, right? Like letting that win and signing someone and then realizing like we are not a great fit for each other. Right? Whether that's energetically or whether that's like they don't want to listen, or they're not, and maybe not listen. They're not open to shifting their thoughts. Right. And I think that is one thing that I've gotten better at over the last 6 to 8 months, is really tuning into what people like. Are they willing to learn? Are they open to receiving what I have? Are they open to taking some chances on themselves, right? Like, are they willing to face some of the fears that they're coming to me saying that I want this thing fixed, or I want to be more confident. I want to open this business. I want to grow my business. But do you really want to, or do you just want someone to complain to?
Yeah. Then there are 2 approaches. Okay. And probably the easiest one to manage is you make an agreement with your client that they are allowed to make 2 complaints per session. That's it.
Yep.
And after that, you're hanging up. They won't even get the rest of their time. But, it's something that people in our line of work, come across is people who will have no intention of changing. And really, my experience, the only thing you can do in that situation is give them their money back and say, I think you need to work with someone else. Or you need to work on whether you're willing to change, because we can't work with people who are not willing to change, who are at least not open to change, because
Right.
what they have been doing up till now is clearly not working. So we're not going to support them to keep doing that. We would be falling down on our job if we allowed that situation to continue. But it's tough because we want to help everyone. That's the kind of personality we have. Well, I'm thinking more in the energy healing realm, but me too, I think. You want to help. Somebody comes to you and says, please, can you help me? We want to help. And it feels like a little mean almost to say, I don't think I can help you.
Right.
And we're not trying to criticize or judge them. We're just trying to say, I'm not the person to get you past this.
Right. Yeah. And, and I look at it with a yoga perspective of like, how can I protect some of my energy, right? How can I keep my energy, I guess, sacred for those that want it? And, if people are like trying to test the boundaries with me and like poke the bear of like, well, how far can I go? Like there's just a point where it's like, you know what? And I'm usually, I guess now that I've been more in tune with my body, right, and used a lot of human design to know that like my authority is sacral, like I know when those gut checks come and it's either an absolute yes or an absolute no. Like
no. Yeah.
It is one or the other. And I've used that a lot, especially lately, to, really tap into like, okay, is this a good idea for me to continue this conversation with this person? And if my gut's like, yeah, then I'll start asking some questions of like, okay, like how much is this person really willing to learn? How much are they willing to shift? How much are they really willing to step into their best self? And if it's a no, then, especially if it's a DM conversation, then it's pretty easy to just either not answer or to just kind of peter out the conversation. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm also a sacral generator, as you know, and so, man, I had to really learn how to listen to that gut. As you may have noticed, I am a very verbal person, and the whole point of listening to the gut is that it is not verbal, or it's So we come from a culture and a society that is teaching us all the time to think things out. But actually that kind of logical, rational way of making decisions does not actually work well for most people. I mean, I'm not just talking about generators and manifesting generators and all the types. I mean, unless you've got an open, unless you've got a defined head center, rationality is just not going to work for you. Right? So one of the things I like to do is I actually like to teach muscle testing to the people around me, whether they're clients or just friends, whatever, so that they can listen for what their circuitry has for them, rather than going through that headspace, that mental maze.
Right.
And I also have no problem with people just calling me up or sending me an email saying, I've got a little dilemma here. Here are my options. What checks? Because if it's not for me, I'm perfectly able to be detached.
Right. Yes.
And really, that's what they're saying. They're saying, I don't know how to be detached about this decision. I want to make the right decision, which from my world says the decision that's in alignment with who that person is, that person's divine blueprint. So yeah, if they want to ask me and then take advantage of my sacral decision-making in the moment capacity, I'm all there for them.
Yeah. And I think that it's so valuable to have someone in your court, in your sphere, who can help you make those decisions and take the emotion out of it. Right. Because we get so caught up in the emotions of like, what will people think? What will this do? Right. Like all of that stuff just weighs so heavy on people.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas in fact, the more you step into who you are, the more confidence you have in who you are, what you're here to do, what's your genius, what's your purpose. It's all written there. It's in that inner library.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually how you are best able to help and serve other people also.
Yeah.
And, once I can get people to start to understand that, then they feel more confidence in what they're hearing for themselves. They don't have to take it from an external authority. They already have an internal authority.
Right.
Yeah. It's just learning to trust that.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, when you said to your husband, you know what, I'm going to shut the yoga studio, and he went, what? And then you said, and I'm going to become a coach or start a coaching business. And he said, what? So you were being you, trusting you, and you were inviting him in to trust you too. Good job.
Yeah, and I was really amazed that he was just so on board with it, right? Like that he was like, yeah, cool. All right. I'm not sure what that is, but okay. He's also a manifesting generator. So, like, yes. So like, it's an interesting dynamic sometimes because I'm like, oh, we both really like to do a lot of things and like
and this,
right. And this. Yeah. And he definitely likes to have more options available to choose from, where I am the kind of person who I like to have a little bit of a plan.
Quite so.
So actually this is a really good question. How do you juggle motherhood as an entrepreneur? So juggling motherhood as an entrepreneur is one of those like fine balancing acts of like some days the business is going to get 90% and I need 90% support from him, right? And other days it's the other direction, right? So we are very fortunate that our kids have a nanny that they go to her house a couple days a week so that I really have some devoted time to my business. However, before we found that nanny, before we had our son, my daughter was home with me all of the time. So if I had to teach a yoga studio, so at the time when the yoga studio was open, she would come with me during the day to the studio, and she would be in it just wandering around the class in the morning, right, for the classes, because that's just what I had to do. And that was, my husband has always worked a corporate job. So, he was like, well, I can't just take off of work if you're teaching a 9 a.m. yoga class. You either have to find someone else or bring her to the studio. So, when she was little, she spent a lot of time with me at the yoga studio. And then when we had our son, I had closed the yoga studio. But I also knew, right? I knew that I needed to ask for help because I knew that having nap time was not going to be enough time to grow this kind of business the way that I wanted to grow it. So again, I asked for help from him, to say like, we need to hire a nanny or either someone to come to our home, or we need to find an in-home daycare situation. And as luck would have it, we found one very quickly, and she had openings for both kids, and it was just so amazing. So, like taking those little wins is just it's such a breath of fresh air, as a mom, to know that, the person who watches my kids loves them as her own and, really takes our values as seriously, right? Like we have very similar like values for like raising kids. So, that has been a huge relief. It's really been a big blessing for us as a family to know that, okay, my kids have a space where they can go and play and learn. I have time to devote to my business. And everyone can be happy.
There you go. Being themselves.
Yes.
Being themselves. That is so great. I was actually wondering about that too. So good question. Whoever asked that, good job. I mean, it's all right for me. Firstly, I'm past the age, and secondly, I don't have any kids, and I'm not married. So, my time is my own, so to speak. I just have lots of interests,
Right.
and I really need more local friends because I've been making a lot of chocolate truffles lately. Well, my container is very big when it comes to chocolate. But I think that also, the access to social media has been a tremendous help for all of us, in attracting clients, in working with clients. I know you and I met on Facebook. Just that we have our Zoom rooms, so dedicated Zoom rooms, so we know that we can always talk to our clients or to each other, as the case may be.
Right.
And and also just the fact that I am used to, prior to this renewed emphasis on using social media and Zoom. Now, I was using Zoom even before COVID. It was kind of a shock to my buddy Michael, who teaches at the local university, because the Friday before spring break, all the professors and all the staff got notifications saying, from when the kids come back in 10 days time, you're going to be teaching on Zoom, all of it. Here is your Zoom identification number. Learn it.
Yep.
I already knew how to use Zoom, so I was actually able to help him for once. That was kind of cool. But it's also just, I'm used to being the only Geotran person for 1,000 miles around.
Yeah.
It's been very exciting for me to find not necessarily Geotran people, because there are only 40 of us and I know all of them anyway, but people like yourself that in a peer relationship, for coaches and people in our basic container, to be able to talk to each other and know that if we've got a problem, there's somebody you can at least give a different perspective. And,
right.
It's like helping each other, having that support network as the professional is as important as what we're providing for our clients.
Yeah.
We're also entrepreneurs. We're also trying to run a business. We're also trying to expand. We're also trying to provide better and better service for the people that we work with. So yay, the internet is what I say.
Yeah. And, having that ability to be able to say, hey, can we meet on Zoom in 20 minutes? I have a question, right?
Yeah.
Or I just need someone to hear this who gets it, right? Like, I love that my husband is willing to let me do all of the harebrained things that I want to do, right? Like all of my crazy ideas, he's in for it. He's like, yes, let's go on an adventure. I would love to. But also sometimes I just need that other entrepreneurial spirit to hear my crazy ideas, to say, okay, this is what I'm thinking. Can you just does it sound absolutely crazy, or is it attainable? Because in my mind, I might think it's attainable, right? But to have that ability to have the feedback, I think is so good, especially, I know I've created some amazing relationships with other coaches, right? Like people like yourself, where, it's like this, it's this peer, it's like meeting at the coffee right? Yeah. The peer interaction, meeting at the coffee pot at work of hey, what are you working on? What do you, having that camaraderie, I think it's so special.
And this is one of the reasons why we have people like you come on the show. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap up now. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate the conversation. Thanks also to our lovely, lovely producer, Angie B. We do love you. And see you all next week. Thanks so much. Bye.